You know what's driving me absolutely insane about Star Citizen? The fact that for years, players have been getting ganked at medbeds the second they respawn. It's like spawning into a firing squad every single time you die. Well, guess what? Star Citizen 4.2 just fixed this nightmare with a 30-second immunity window and spread out respawn points that completely eliminate camping. Plus radiation sickness fixes, freight elevators that actually work, and a bunch of other changes that should have happened years ago. With the update dropping around June 20th, this might actually make the game playable again. Let's talk about the worst of these problems first. Picture this. You die in combat, respawn at a medbed, and get instantly killed again by some jerk camping the spawn point like it's Call of Duty. Then you respawn again, and die again, and again. Welcome to the medbed camping nightmare that's been ruining Star Citizen for years. Medbed camping has been Star Citizen's most broken exploit since forever, turning every death into a potential rage quit scenario. These griefers would sit at medical facilities with weapons drawn, waiting for players to respawn so they could blast them the second they appeared. No chance to move, no chance to fight back, just instant death over and over again. The community outcry was massive. Forum posts with hundreds of replies, Reddit threads with thousands of upvotes, YouTube videos documenting the problem. Players were posting screenshots of their death screens showing the same griefer names over and over again. Some players documented getting killed by the same camper 15 times in a single session. This wasn't rare. It was happening to someone every single day. This created completely impossible situations where new players couldn't even learn basic game mechanics without getting harassed constantly. Imagine buying a $45 game package, dying in your first mission, then getting spawn killed 20 times in a row by some loser with nothing better to do. How many potential players do you think said, "Screw this," and refunded the game after that experience? You know what players had to do to avoid this broken system? They developed elaborate workarounds just to play the game normally. Some would log out immediately after dying and wait 30 minutes before logging back in, hoping the camper got bored and left. Others would coordinate with org mates to clear med bays before respawning. People were literally treating medical facilities like enemy territory in their own game. Beyond being just annoying, this garbage was absolutely demolishing Star Citizen's rep among serious gamers. Every gaming forum had horror stories about Star Citizen medbed camping. New player retention was terrible, partly because of this one stupid exploit. CIG had to fix this or risk losing their entire player base to griefers.
So what did they finally do in 4.2? In 4.2, respawns now grant 30 seconds of full damage immunity, or until you leave the bed. Plus, spawn points had been redistributed across 5 satellite locations around medical facilities. No exceptions, no workarounds, no way to bypass it. You literally cannot hurt someone who just respawned, period. And the cherry on top? When you die now, you might respawn at any of several different medical facilities in the area. Spawning across multiple locations and timed invulnerability makes it virtually impossible to camp every exit. Campers can't cover them all, especially with that 30-second protection window. The camping exploit is completely dead. These griefers can sit at med bays all day long and accomplish absolutely nothing except wasting their own time. Players can finally respawn, get their bearings, grab their gear, and move on with their lives like normal human beings. This breaks the infinite death loop exploit without players having to deal with constant harassment. This medbed fix shows something important about how Cloud Imperium is finally starting to listen to player feedback and fix the systems that actually matter for basic gameplay. But medbed camping wasn't the only broken system making entire parts of the game completely unplayable. Previously, brief exposure to radiation zones could instantly escalate you to Tier 3 poisoning, making exploration zones off-limits. You'd walk into a slightly irradiated area for like 3 seconds and boom, Tier 3 radiation poisoning that would kill you no matter what you did. The system was so broken, it made me want to yeet my PC into orbit. The old radiation system was such hot garbage that players avoided these zones like the plague, wasting massive chunks of content the devs spent thousands of hours creating. Why would anyone bother exploring irradiated areas when touching them for 5 seconds meant automatic mission failure? The risk-reward balance was completely broken. Players would see radiation warnings and immediately turn around rather than deal with the inevitable death that was coming. Touch a slightly irradiated doorknob? Congratulations. Tier 3 poisoning and a one-way ticket to the medbay, and absolutely no real way to recover from it. The thresholds were set so low that even the tiniest exposure would doom your entire gaming session. I'm talking about radiation levels that would trigger from walking near certain areas, not even directly touching them. The system treated every source of radiation like it was Chernobyl's reactor core. Imagine grinding 30 minutes to set up the perfect mining run, hauling your ship across the system, only to step out and get insta-killed by invisible death rays after 10 seconds. Pure controller-throwing material. Back to the drawing board, wasted fuel, wasted time, wasted effort.
The radiation med pens were completely useless in the old system, providing basically no meaningful relief whatsoever. These things were supposed to help you survive hazardous environments, but they barely did anything against the massive radiation doses the game was throwing at players. You could inject yourself with multiple med pens and still die within minutes. What's the point of having medical supplies if they don't actually work? This broken system made valuable mining and exploration content completely inaccessible. Some of the most interesting locations in the game game were completely off-limits because of this broken radiation system. Rich mineral deposits, unique exploration sites, story locations, all locked behind an instant death radiation wall that no amount of preparation could overcome. Players were literally avoiding entire planets and moons because the radiation system made them unplayable. That's content that cost money to develop. Locations that artists and designers spent time creating, all wasted because the gameplay mechanics were too punishing for anyone to actually experience them. The dev solution? They raised radiation thresholds for tiers 1 through 3, giving players breathing room to react. Plus, MedPens now temporarily clear sickness until you reach a bed. Instead of going from 0 to dead in 5 seconds, the system now gives you time to react and adapt. The thresholds are set at reasonable levels that allow for strategic gameplay instead of instant punishment. The new FPS radiation widget provides clear exposure levels and animations, showing exposure buildup and decay with actionable feedback about your radiation exposure instead of just a vague warning before sudden death. You can see exactly how much radiation you're taking and make informed decisions about whether to push forward or retreat. Environmental gameplay is finally becoming strategic rather than just punishing. Environmental suits and MedPens now function as intended, enabling strategic excursions into hazardous areas. You can plan routes through contaminated zones, complete your objectives, and get out alive with some smart preparation and timing. These fixes show that Cloud Imperium is finally addressing the core systems that make or break entire gameplay loops. But fixing broken mechanics is just the foundation for what they're building on top of them. The Stormbreaker event shows what happens when they actually put those fixed systems to work. This thing combines stealth infiltration, PvP combat, and PvE challenges into one massive multi-phase operation that requires actual planning and strategy.
Stormbreaker blends stealth, PvE, PvP, dynamic weather, and new gear in a cohesive, multi-phase sandbox activity built around hunting the apex Valakar, which is basically a massive sandworm boss. But here's the twist. You can't just fly up and start shooting it like every other boss in every other game. You have to earn the right to fight this thing through a complex operation that actually makes you work for it. You're not just fighting NPCs or other players separately. You're dealing with both simultaneously while trying to maintain your cover and complete your objectives. This creates this really tense situation where you never know if that guy in the hazmat suit is an NPC or another player who might mess up your entire plan. The whole thing starts at one of 10 Pharaoh data centers scattered across Pyro 4, where you need to infiltrate these facilities to acquire a high-level clearance keycard without getting caught. These aren't just empty buildings with a terminal at the end. They have actual security measures, patrols, and multiple layers of access control that you need to bypass or overcome. The real Galaxy Brain move, though? Swiping hazmat suits and lab coats from NPCs to blend in with facility staff. You can straight up go full hitman mode, cold cock some lab nerd, steal his outfit, and strut around the facility like you own the place. The stealth mechanics actually work properly, giving you access to specific rooms and doors that would otherwise be locked down tight. The security system has different access levels and daily passcodes that change regularly. You can't just memorize the solution and run it over and over again. The game forces you to adapt your approach each time because the passcodes are different every day. You need to find data processing keycards, figure out the current access codes, and navigate multiple security checkpoints without raising alarms. Once you get that keycard, you have to make it to the Lazarus Complex transport hub on Pyro 1, which is located inside a dangerous distortion storm. Other players are doing the exact same thing, creating opportunities for emergent gameplay, where you might forge temporary alliances to breach security, then race each other for the best loot and boss rewards. When you finally reach the Valakar egg specimen room and trigger the boss fight with the apex Valakar, you need specialized equipment and actual teamwork to take down this massive sandworm. The thing has exposed layers of radiated skin that you need to target for extra damage, and it can probably one-shot you if you're not careful. The rewards are actually worth the effort too. You get Valakar teeth and pearls that you can trade at Cloud Imperium for special items. The freight elevator system lets you stash harvested pearls and fangs at the Lazarus Complex and retrieve them at the transport hub, so you don't have to carry everything manually like some kind of pack mule.
This event type shows exactly what Star Citizen content should look like going forward. Multi-phase operations that combine different gameplay systems, meaningful player interaction, and actual consequences for your choices. The Stormbreaker event proves that when Cloud Imperium focuses on creating complex, interconnected systems instead of just adding more ships to buy, they can actually deliver engaging content that makes the game worth playing. Of course, complex events like this only work when the underlying technical systems actually function properly. While everyone focuses on the flashy new content, some of the most important improvements in 4.2 are the technical fixes that make these elaborate operations possible in the first place. Ship and ground vehicle
physics have been polished to reduce jitter on grid surfaces, which means mining operations finally work properly in high-gravity environments. Before this fix, your ship would shake so violently that you couldn't maintain a stable position while mining. The mining laser would drift off target constantly, making it impossible to extract resources efficiently. Some players just gave up on mining entirely on certain planets because the turbulence made it too frustrating. Everyone's drooling over the Stormbreaker event, but let's be real. These back-end fixes are the true MVPs that'll keep you from rage quitting. These aren't sexy features that make good marketing videos, but they're the stuff that actually makes the game playable on a daily basis. Scanning used to be such a dumpster fire that we had to invent bizarre rituals just to find a single rock worth mining. I'm not kidding when I say people would fly in complex patterns, restart their ships, or even relog just to get their scanners working properly. It was ridiculous. The previous scanning system would fail completely beyond certain distances, making exploration absolutely frustrating for anyone trying to find mining nodes or salvage targets. You'd fly to a location, start scanning, and get nothing. Then you fly closer, and suddenly everything would pop up on your screen like magic. The system had no consistency or reliability whatsoever. What made it worse was that you never knew if your scanner wasn't working or if there really was nothing to find. Players would waste hours flying around empty areas because their scanner wasn't picking up resources that were actually there. The signal strength was completely unreliable, and the scanning angle was a mystery that nobody could figure out. Here's the nightmare scenario that happened constantly. You'd spend 30 minutes flying to a mining location, start scanning, find nothing, and fly back home empty-handed. Then, some other player would go to the exact same spot and find massive quantanium deposits because their scanner happened to be working that day. It was pure luck whether your scanning equipment would function properly.
The freight elevator situation was even worse for anyone trying to handle Valakar harvestables. Before 4.2, you had to manually carry everything from Lazarus facility to your ship, which meant multiple trips back and forth through dangerous areas, while other players might be shooting at you. The logistics were a complete nightmare. The economic gameplay loop was broken because of these technical problems. Mining times were too long, scanning didn't work properly, and transportation was a logistical nightmare. Players would spend more time fighting broken systems than actually playing the game. These seemingly small technical issues had massive impacts on daily gameplay quality. When core systems don't work properly, everything else becomes frustrating. You can add all the fancy new content you want, but if players can't scan for resources or transport their goods without fighting broken mechanics, the game feels terrible to play. So, what did they actually fix in 4.2? The new scanning UI finally works reliably at range, with an adjustable scan angle slider from 2% to 90% that you can control with the mouse wheel. The signal strength indicator actually tells you something useful about scan quality, and mining nodes consistently show strong signals when they're actually there. Long-range node detection finally works as intended. Freight elevators at Lazarus facilities are now functional. Store harvestables in local inventory and retrieve them at the transport hub without manual trips. It's a simple solution that makes the entire process actually manageable. Quantanium refinements now take 8 hours instead of up to 23, and other materials have similarly halved processing times, laying groundwork for future crafting. The flight physics improvements mean your ship stays stable during mining operations instead of bouncing around like a ping-pong ball. These improvements show that Star Citizen is finally becoming a polished experience, where the basic systems actually work as intended, instead of fighting against players at every turn. But what does this pattern of fixes actually mean for the game's future? Star Citizen 4.2 delivers 3 massive wins that actually matter. MedBed immunity stops spawn camping, dead in its track. Radiation systems finally let you explore contaminated zones without instant death. The Stormbreaker event shows what happens when all these fixed systems work together in one coherent experience. This represents a fundamental shift from adding broken content to actually fixing what's already there. For years, Cloud Imperium kept piling new features on top of broken systems while ignoring basic functionality that made the game unplayable. But this release finally delivers on years of player complaints about core systems. For once, Cloud Imperium is actually fixing the game instead of dropping another $700 JPEG into your wallet. Let's show them with our engagement that this is the content we want. Actual gameplay fixes, not another shiny concept ship with a 2026 release date. The ball's in your court now, CIG. We're watching.